Without taking much time, I'll request Khushbu Jain, Advocate Supreme Court of India, to give a presentation on cyber law. Up to you. But please keep it within 8 minutes. Yeah.
Okay. So much has already been spoken when you talk about security, when you talk about data. But yes, principally, data is part and parcel of our life in every sphere, right from social media platforms to banking um, to recreational activities to think of a thing and you have it. Look at the industry, medical industry, automobile, with AI coming in place. You think, and we are literally the essential part of our life today is data. Now with the good of data, we have seen how we have our lives have been transformed, how industries have been transforming with the use of data. The same thing happened when I talk about negativity coming out of data, and that also we have been listening since morning, that how what are the adversarial usage of data. I'll give one example, and I think somebody can answer me, can play. I can see all the eyes which are sleepy now. So let's say you get a call. How many of you must have received a call from the bank that, okay, we are calling from your bank, and you're receiving XYZ credit limit, or some added advantages? All of us. How many of you believe that the person is calling from the bank right from the first hand? Okay. So if the bank says that, sir, I'm calling from your bank and your last credit card bill was XYZ, and the credit card bill before that was XYZ plus Y, how many will you believe? I think a lot will. Here, people are not accepting. Okay, then the guy says that, sir, I'm calling from your bank and your date of birth is this. And I'm calling from your branch, which is MIDC Andheri. And I am so and so. How many of you will succumb to it? Some will. Trust me, I get calls every day that I have lost my money. A lot of people would. Let's say you don't believe now, also you are well aware about security. The next would be, would you call up at, Google Internet about MIDC branch and call up that place and call, that guy that, can I speak to Rahul? And then will you believe on that guy? Yes. Still no? I'm loving the kind of awareness we have. All right. So all these things can be done only because the guy has a lot of data about you. So practically, a lot of cyber crime happen because of trust. They can gain trust, and to gain trust, the most important part is data. More the data, easy for them to commit a crime against you. I'm just talking about very basic thing because we keep on receiving the calls. You think of a cyber crime, take it as an example. More the data, easy for them to succumb. The kind of baits that you get it on your phone, if they are more aware about the things you like holidays, you get holiday related some promotional thing, you are bound to open about that. If they get into one system, easy, any of your boss mails you, you'll be bound to open with the attachment, the PDF, that okay, it has come from your boss. But all the person has to do was not enter into your security system, but enter into 1%, from that one enter into 100, from that 100 enter into more. That's all about data. So everybody realized, all the countries realized that the data is important. India also realized in 2017, the Supreme Court in K. Puttaswamy versus Union of India said that, okay, one cannot have a dignified life if doesn't have a right to privacy in place. Now, with that dignified life and right to privacy in place, they said that everybody has to enjoy Article 21, right to privacy, which is now instead of right to life. But they said that, what do you mean by right to privacy? So now tomorrow, can I say that, Uber, that no, I cannot give you my location because I have something called as right to privacy. I'm telling you, you come here. Can you do that? You know? So there has to be some mechanism. How much a company has to, what are their obligations? What you as an Indian citizen have a right when it comes to right to privacy? What do you understand by right to privacy? To understand all these part is where came the aspect that, okay, let there be some framework. In the same 2017 judgment, they said that, okay, let there be a committee formed. Justice Shri Krishna committee was formed in 2017. From 17, it went to 2018. Justice Shri Krishna committee, instead of giving framework, went a step ahead and drafted the whole bill, the framework, the bill of data protection. And 2019 is the first time that the bill, the personal data protection bill was introduced in parliament. Since 2019 in 2021, the same bill went through a lot of changes, almost 100 plus amendments, suggestions. I think we all were listening about localization, complete localization. All data centers started having in India because we spoke about complete localization in India, and India being largest data generation country, said that, okay, that would happen soon. In 2022, they said, okay, let's recall the bill. 2022 November, they introduced a new bill, hardly 40 sections. And 2023 August is where we have seen now that we are now among those few countries which has Data Protection Act in India, Data Privacy Act in India. Now, all of you since morning have been talking about protection and security. Let's talk about DPDP. DPDP doesn't talk about security. Any of the NIST guidelines, any of the frameworks which you're talking about, ISO 27001 standards, nothing. It doesn't talk about security at all. All it talks about is that there are people who are Indian citizens, and for them, there has to be lead law which safeguards and looks into it that their right to privacy is being maintained properly. When I say right to privacy, that means till now we were data subjects without having any ownership to ourselves. Free internet, but we were the subjects. We had no say when it comes to data. So that's why they're saying that more power to the users. You're the data, you're the data subject. You should have a right over the data of yours. So what exactly DPDP is all about? DPDP is all for users like you and me. So now when you go on internet, you are not compulsorily being abided that if you want to take the services, say yes to anything and everything they ask about. So it's practically talking about that, make me aware about what exactly are you taking from me. Take a consent from me. When you take a consent, it doesn't mean some 40 pages of legal document created by a lawyer you don't understand. No. Take a consent from me which I understand, and in that consent write very clearly what data, for what purpose, and how many parties are going to utilize that data and for what purposes they are going to utilize the data. In case there is a change in that, that's where you again take a consent from the user. I am the user, let me have a right to it. That's what DPDP is all about. Apart from this, the consent which is there are more rights which have been given to me, because till now, none of us could go and have any complaints. If somebody is doing something, where do you go? And though you had right to privacy, but would you go for every teeny tiny thing that has happened that, okay, let me go and, my fundamental right has been infringed, let me file a petition in the court? No, you would not do that. So for that, the other aspect which is there is grievance redressal. So all companies, why I'm saying user side of it, because you and me understand the user rights, understand every right which I'm talking has an other side of it, which is an obligation on the data fiduciary, which is the companies where all of you are part and parcel. So the other one is grievance redressal, that let there be a place where I can ask for my grievance, or if I have a grievance, I can register my complaint. So that's the another aspect, which is now that all the data fiduciaries are now mandated to have a grievance redressal mechanism on their platform. The second would be that today, any one of you can tell me where your data is and how and where and what all purposes? No. So you have something called as right to access. Today, from this time onwards, you can ask any of these companies that, okay, can you please give me detail of all my data sets? When I say detail of my data set, क्या data है, कब से चल रहा है, कितने दिनों तक के लिए है, and आप किस purpose के लिए use कर रहे हो? So when you give me that data, I have option whether I can exercise my right to deletion, or I have option when I can say that, okay, you can continue to do, so I give my consent to it. So when I say I have an option to delete, till now you don't have something called as right to erasure. We do have some judgments where erasure has been granted by the government, but otherwise we never had something in a nutshell. But how can you have something called as right to privacy without having right to be forgotten? That's practically impossible, right? So now the ownership is so strong on your own self or your own data that you can exercise your right to deletion. When I say exercise right to deletion, again, all the companies, you have to make sure that you have in place the data, the list of data, and what all third parties the data has been shared, how many copies of the data is there. So let's say one copy, 40 multiplications, 50 third parties. When a user exercises rights to deletion, all these places have to be acted upon. It cannot be just you. So that's where another obligation comes as data fiduciary, and that is that as a data fiduciary, you need to have system in place. And I think before me, somebody was talking about privacy by design, and that's where privacy by design will come in place, that you need to have the system in place where you can delete. You need to have third-party contracts in place where you mandate them and where you have checks and balances in place. When some kind of request comes is where that deletion can happen. Now, the next one, which is very beautiful and very new, the data, everybody says it's an asset, it's an oil. So it's an asset, it's been given a real sense to the asset. When I say it's given a real sense, now you have something called as in your will, or normally in the event of unsoundness of mind or in the event of death, you can nominate somebody else for your data. So you can transfer your rights to somebody else. So data is an asset. Now in this event, you can transfer. Now that person can either have a monetary benefit to it, either can utilize that data for some other purpose, or can continue to run your online part the way it is, or he can exercise his right to delete or erasure. It has been said by 2030 there would be more dead people online than the people who are alive. So you can practically have that right to nominate, so that the person can practically have right to deletion being exercised after your death. I mean, that's one of the ways to do it. Now, when all these things come in place is where the next level comes. How you going to check, what you're going to do. So another aspect, non-compliance and breach. These are two different things. So if you don't comply with basic things of consent in 22 languages, which are there in your Schedule 8 of Constitution of India, if you don't, Bhashini, somebody was talking in the morning, those 22 languages, the same 22 languages, you have to convert your consent form in 22 languages. If you don't provide, up to 50 crores of a penalty on you. Just by basic non-compliance. Hum breach tak to ja hi nahi rahe. We are not talking about the data has been breached or you have been attacked. No. Basic non-compliance. If I am your competitor, or if I am, in the free time, all I have to do is keep checking your systems in place. Basic non-compliance, first, no consent, 50 crores, up to 50 crores. Second, no right to grievance redressal, up to 50 crores. Third, nominate, deletion, excess, 50, 50, 50. Fourth, if you're processing children data and not taking consent of their parents or a legal guardian, up to 150 crore. Next, if you're taking or processing data with people with disability. This is something which is very new and I've not seen anywhere else, and people are forgetting to address that, but you have to look into it. If you deal with data of person with disability, you need to take consent from his local guardian or his parent, his or her parent. That's another thing. In the absence of doing so, another 150 up to 150 crore of a penalty. So these penalties are very high when it comes to just basic non-compliance. We are not even going on security part or breach and how to mitigate the risk when it comes to all those. Basic non-compliance. Why? Because till now, people were not wary about your data. Your data was being flowing free flow everywhere, which was resulting into increased number of cybercrime, which we have seen how the crimes have increased. That's where they're gonna bring more of accountability and transparency for you, so that there is some sanitization and sensitization there when it comes to dealing with data. It doesn't limit yourself that how much data you can take or not take. You can take tons and tons of data, but the liability lies on you that have that accountability and transparency in place. Now, the second aspect of penalty that comes in place is in case there is a breach. Now, if the breach happens, everybody says cyber attacks are here to stay. And another line in the morning which I heard, that there would be two types of companies, one that have been breached, the second who will be breached very soon. Cyber attacks are here to stay. So 250 crores, up to 250 crores is the penalty that we are looking in for when it comes to attack. But are we in a state today that we can think of something called as 250 crores of a penalty to be paid? What do you do? Or are there going to be any variant or gradient when it comes to how much penalty should be imposed on you? That's where the question lies, and that's where all the answers with regard to the whole day we are talking about security, how do you mitigate the risk comes in place. Because the whole aspect of how much penalty would be imposed on you will be determined on certain factors. And those factors are how fast you were in mitigating the risk. Are there any repetitive nature of attacks happening? How fast were you in telling your affected parties, those users who have been affected with that data, that you were very fast in making them aware about the breach that has happened and what kind of impact they can have because of that? The fifth one would be that severity of the data. So let's say a phone number or a name and a sex is breached, and somebody's Aadhaar card, phone number, and medical records have been breached. So these are different types of data. Law doesn't segregate on the data. Remember, there is nothing called as personal data, sensitive data, critical data when it comes to DPDP. No segregation. Personal data is a personal data. So your phone number and your name is a personal data. You breach, you're liable for a penalty. But the amount of penalty that would be imposed on you will be dependent on few factors, as I have Just note it down, and that will have one of the factors would be the severity of the data and the impact of data that has happened because of that breach. So these are the accountable part of it. There are a lot of exemptions. I have been asked a lot of questions by enterprises. One of the exemptions is exemption to startups. So everybody has come to me and said that, Khushbu, why not I open one company, which is a startup, which will deal with the data, and I'll not deal with the data. So all the penalties would be with the startup, but startups are exempted. So practically, I'm out of purview of DPDP. Is it possible? Huh? Okay, yes, absolutely. It's not possible because those startups are not plain standard startups. There are category of startups which will be defined very soon. We are waiting for the rules to come in place. And they would be also pre-business. So let's say you're an AI company where you need a lot of data sets to run in. You're into health tech, you need a lot of data sets. You can have as much number of data sets you want. You can have your working done, but that's all till pre-business. The moment you're in business is where the exemption goes away from you. That's because we as a country don't want to kill our Indian incorporations. We don't want to go behind when it comes to innovation, when it comes to the way AI is growing. So that's the only rebate that the government is planning to do. It has nothing to do with the plain startup. That's whole DPDP for you. I just wanted to apprise everybody that what DPDP and overview is all about. I have another lawyer with me who will talk about cyber law, what exactly cyber law is all about. I can deal with anything else. I have 2 minutes for the question. No? One question? Which I knew he's having.
Hello, am I audible?
Yeah.
There are 2-3 questions probably which will also be applicable to most of the people out here. Like working in an environment, suppose like I'm working in a single citizen database. So I take a consent from a citizen, like I'm using for say 3 purposes. Now every day I'm latching on to different APIs and workflows. So every day probably I'll have to then send this to the citizen or the data principal for their consent.
Absolutely.
So probably this will create so much of a ruckus in the whole system.
It is going to. So the best way for you is to have as many as you can think of for the purposes and have that in place right now, that it would be for A, B, C, D. Exhaust your remedies when it comes to purposes, if you can. If not, then you keep on updating at your website where it comes as a pop-up and somebody has to read and goes as a agree and
Like,
it goes as an email.
Can we like say that my consent is an omnibus consent for all the government
No.
schemes which are like which are being run by state government?
No.
Because see what I am trying to just look at it, because we are creating a single citizen database. It's like a golden record. So every day different department will keep latching onto this. So every day even citizen will get pissed off ki why are you every day sending it for a consent to me?
So practically when you talk about your specific area, you can really define the purpose that it would be for the purposes which would be for the benefit of direct benefits or some schemes which
Something
can be
like
done.
Aadhaar,
So
which
those
Aadhaar
kind
is
of things you can have it as an open-ended, that this will be for these purposes.
Purpose, not the scheme per se.
Yeah, don't write the scheme per se, but you can write the purpose. But
Makes
you have
sense.
you can't now write group companies or sister concerns or third parties.
Very generic cannot be.
You have to write the entities where the data is being shared. And practically it's easy for you also to write, because tomorrow if I come and sue you for the data, or the board comes against you or for you, is where you have that, okay, I have already listed these 40 companies, the data is not breached from me, but one of the third parties, and that third party is now also liable to, for the penalties.
And one of the, I'm just trying to see that clause. One of the clause says that all the state government will have to take the permission from the central government for certain data sets which will be barred from this.
No, when it comes to, so only exemptions that you have is when it comes to national security, when it comes to law enforcement, when it comes to court orders, when it comes to government implementation, when it comes to certain specific schemes that they come up, which would be very specifically put in for the specific order. Those are the only exceptions that have been given. Otherwise, I fail to understand. I'll read with you and I can have a discussion with you on that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Wonderfully explained DPDP Act by Khushbu Jain, advocate from Supreme Court. Thanks for sharing your insights.